guest back. Myron, I'm going to turn it over to you now and take it away.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. By now, everyone probably knows our next guest, Ben Hochman, the sports columnist from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I almost said Globe Democrat, Ben.
A great paper in its day, I'll tell you that, man.
In its day. Well, Ben studied journalism at Mizzou and then worked at the New Orleans Times-Picayune and the Denver Post. He's no stranger to the St. Louis Jewish community, having hosted several Jewish book festival sports nights, and in fact has brought one of his previous books to the JBF. Now he's written a fourth book, 11 in 11, the story of the 2011 Cardinals World Series champions, which will be featured, incidentally, at the Jewish Book Festival on November 18th. While he's earned some writing honors over the years, he feels his greatest accomplishment in St. Louis is that they named a pastrami sandwich after him at Protzel's Delicatessen. Is that still on the menu?
Still on the menu. I think it's their best seller.
Ben, thanks for honoring us again by being here today to speak to members of the St. Louis Jewish community. Take it away, Ben.
Thanks, Myron, and thanks, Judy. Thanks to all of you for carving out an hour to spend some time with me. And it's a special day. You could argue that today is a unofficial holiday in St. Louis because not only is it the birthday of Willie McGee, the great St. Louis Cardinal Hall of Famer, 1985 MVP, but it's also the birthday of the rapper Nelly. So how about that for St. Louis, folks? Hey, look at Myron. He's got the Willie McGee bobblehead as well. So yeah, thanks for joining me today. I'm on the set of my daily show, and both set and show deserve these quotation marks. But every morning at 10 a.m. or 4:10 a.m., I do a video on the Post-Dispatch website. And my name is Ben Hochman, so we call it 10 Hochman, your 10 a.m. daily dose of sports. And it's basically me just talking about goofy things, and we do celebrations of birthdays. And I always pick a random card out of the hat. Every day there's an old Cardinal player that I choose from the hat. So like today we'd have, Frank DiPino. Who can forget Frank DiPino? He is being celebrated here on our Zoom. But a lot to get into about the St. Louis Cardinals, the 2022 St. Louis Cardinals. We're spinning it forward, but we'll also look back a little bit at that crazy, wacky 2021 season that had a lot of people pulling hair, maybe some people's hair getting gray, a lot of frustration, and then jubilance for 17 straight games. One of the most historic runs in Cardinals franchise history. The boys couldn't lose. They win 17 games. They make the playoffs. They lose in a heartbreaking fashion. I'm sorry to bring this up. You're probably having a nice day. The sun is shining. You've eaten a nice breakfast. And here comes Hochman bringing up the Alex Reyes home run to Chris Taylor in the playoffs that ended the Cardinals season. I'm sorry for bringing that up. John Reichman, I apologize, man. Shaking your head, but yeah, had to bring it up, and that's baseball, right? But even as the Cardinals flew back to St. Louis from Los Angeles,
I'll be right.
There was a lot of optimism about the 2022 Cardinals, and even general manager, president of baseball operations, and former general manager John Mozeliak, as he took the flight back from LA to St. Louis. He's like, we've got a good manager in place, Mike Shildt. We should be good to go. And that literally was his mindset on that airplane. But a few days later, the Cardinals had a team coaches and executives meeting. And I'm sure a lot of you want to ask me, what the heck happened in that meeting, Benjamin? And I'll be honest, I don't know the specific thing. I don't know the specific reason, the specific topic that made Mike Shildt so adamant and made John Mozeliak so mad that John Mozeliak fired the same manager that just won the 17 games and took him to the playoffs, and on the flight home he thought was going to be his manager in 2022. But he did. They had a clash, and John Mozeliak, who's the boss. I mean, I guess Bill DeWitt Jr. is the boss, but John Mozeliak runs the show. And Mozeliak decided, look, I don't think going forward I can work with Mike Schultz amicably about these topics. I'm going to bring in someone who I want, who I know will listen to me, who I know will follow me. Oh, but also is great with the players and has a great baseball acumen and IQ, and is going to be a manager someday. So we might as well make him a manager sooner than later. And they announced that Oliver Marmol, Ollie, O-L-I, that's his nickname. That's his Ben to his Benjamin, Ollie to his Oliver. Is the St. Louis Cardinals manager. He's 35 years old. Some of you might have grandkids that are 35 years old, or kids that are 35 years old, and this guy's running the Cardinals. It's pretty bonkers, but that's the reality. And the St. Louis Cardinals, I know I don't have the specific reason why Mozeliak and Schultz blew up, but we can point to some things that surely were of topic. One being the Cardinals hitting philosophy. And it's really interesting when you get a lot of smart, strong, and I guess strong-headed people in the same room who have different philosophies about the same sport. And the Cardinals have a hitting coach named Jeff Albert, the only man in St. Louis with longer hair than mine. Well, I guess Bader too, the only dark-haired man with longer hair than mine, because Bader's got the blonde Goldilocks locks. And by the way, did you see photos on social media? It seemed like 37% of St. Louis kids were Harrison Bader for Halloween. Every kid had the curly hair. It was very clever, very neat to see. So anyway, when you look at the Cardinals hitting approach, they had some pretty stern meetings, some stern yellings and talking tos during the season last year when things weren't going well. And the Cardinals had to change their philosophy a little bit. They were just trying to hit home runs too much. And finally, they worked on trying to hit the ball to all fields. And perhaps the player that benefited most from this transition was a fella named Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill, whose biceps are as big as Ledoux, is one of the best up-and-coming players in St. Louis and in baseball. He's a fun player to watch. But yeah, and I've admitted this before, heading into this season, the 2021 season, I, Benjamin Hockman of 10 Hockman, I was down on the guy. I didn't think he was going to be good. And the reality is, one of the reasons I didn't think he would be good still remains an aspect of his game. He strikes out more than me trying to get dates in high school. And that's a lot of strikeouts. I mean, this guy has a 30% strikeout rate. It's terrible. But when he doesn't strike out, he hits can I say crap? He hits the crap out of the ball. He hits the heck out of the ball. He had one of the hardest exit velocities in the National League. But to my point, he wasn't just pulling home runs. He was hitting line drives all around the field. It was a great batting approach. He was hitting opposite field doubles, even opposite field home runs. And he was a key cog on the St. Louis Cardinals that won 90 games. But as we head into this winter, the Cardinals are dealing with some more hitting philosophies. And basically, Mozeliak said, hitting coach Jeff Albert, he of the long hair, is my man. I want Jeff Albert to be my hitting coach and my instructor. And if Mike Schultz didn't get along with him, I'm going to find a manager who does. And who does? 35-year-old Ollie Marmol, who will now work closely with his close friend, Jeff Albert, on the Cardinals hitting. The two guys have a background. They both spent a lot of time in the Jupiter, Florida area together, coaching and talking baseball. And they're about the same age, and they get along pretty well as of now. But even Ollie Marmol admitted it. He goes, look, in this business, it basically you're set up for a divorce. And he's like, someday even I will probably be divorced from the St. Louis Cardinals. And it's true. Like, very seldom do you see a manager who gets to go out on top, like our friend Tony La Russa, who wins Game 7 of the 2011 World Series and then calls it a career. until 10 years later when he comes back in 2021 to manage the Chicago White Sox, which was crazy as it was. But La Russa's back in baseball, which makes me wonder, why can't Albert Pujols rejoin the Cardinals? We'll talk about that a little later in this program. But yeah, so the St. Louis Cardinals with manager Oli Marmol, they're in good hands. I wanted Skip Schumacher. I love Skip Schumacher, and I got to know him a little bit writing my my latest book, which is called 11 and 11, the story of the 2011 St. Louis Cardinals. And Skip Schumacher was a key guy on that team. He wasn't maybe the best player on the team, but he produced offensively and defensively, but he was a personality. He had this magnetic personality. He's one of those guys, and we probably all have a friend like this or a family member who just walks in the room and he doesn't try to overtake the room, but the room just gravitates to him nevertheless. He has that type of personality, and that's what you want in a leader. And Skip Schumacher, of course, knows the game really well. He was an associate manager, basically the bench coach for the San Diego Padres. And he's a great dude, and he'll probably be a manager in Major League Baseball one day. But Mozeliak talked to him, but he decided to go with Oli Marmol, the in-house choice, the bench coach who stood next to Mike Shildt. And that, to me, and I mentioned it in some columns, and you've probably thought it too. You're like, wait a minute, Mozeliak, you just fired a guy because you didn't believe in his philosophies, and you just hired his right-hand man. You just hired his consigliere. You just hired Tom Hayden after you got rid of Corleone. I mean, that's really interesting to me. But the truth is that Oli Marmol and Mike Shildt aren't the same brain, and Oli Marmol sees baseball a little differently, and we'll have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Have to give all these people the benefit of the doubt that the Cardinals made the right decision. But the window is very, very small, right? They have to do well in 2022. That's for you all, the fans, and that's for them all, the Cardinals, who are investing a lot of money into this 2022 team, and everything's kind of setting up for these boys to be good. And they were good the last 3 years. They made the playoffs, sure, but they need to be mid-2000s good. They need to be perennial World Series possible teams. They need to, that's what the St. Louis Cardinals should strive for. They do strive for, but that's what they should accomplish. And they haven't done it in the past 3 years. And this is the year. You've got my man Nolan Arenado coming back, nominated for a Gold Glove. By the way, six Cardinals were nominated for Gold Gloves. How embarrassing is it if you're one of the guys that didn't get nominated for a Gold Glove? That's how good the Cardinals defense is right now. 6 Cardinals won a Gold Glove. I believe 5 of them will win a Gold Glove, including knowing the way the voters go. I think they're going to vote for Arenado, even though you can look at some stats and say that the guy that replaced him in Colorado, Ryan McMahon, he might actually deserve the Gold Glove. But I think St. Louis's Nolan Arenado will win the Gold Glove. But they've got Arenado coming back. They've got Goldschmidt coming back. The aforementioned Tyler O'Neill. And then, you look at the outfield in general. This is fun. This is exciting. If you like excitement from a baseball standpoint, look no further than the St. Louis Cardinals outfield. You've got O'Neill, who we've talked about already. You've got Harrison Bader in center. Harrison Bader, Hair, I think that's how he spells it, Harrison Bader, in center field. He's going to win the Gold Glove, and he is a really dynamic player who came on super strong late in that year. When you look at that 17-game winning streak, one of the key players was Harrison Bader offensively, and he was having just a so-so year heading into September last year, but he exploded offensively. He was locked in. He had a lot of key hits, and now he's got all this confidence heading into next season. And then, of course, the top prospect who was once the top prospect in the Cardinals organization, Dylan Carlson. He had a pretty splendid full rookie year for the Cardinals last year. I mentioned this on our programs before. When I was growing up, I didn't even know what OPS meant. It was a stat that none of us were familiar with, but now it's a stat that I think that all of us, regardless of our age, should embrace and kind of know a little bit about as we're talking baseball heading into the future. I'll make it simple for you. OPS is an acronym, and it's for on base percentage plus P plus slugging percentage. The idea is just to show how dynamic a hitter is. How often does he get on base, and how often does he get on many bases, if you will, by slugging? And they've got this thing called OPS, and a pretty good line, similar to we talk about 300 as a batting average, right? 300 as a batting average, or and I've said this before on the show, and I keep calling this a show. Is this a show? I feel like I'm on a show. I'm on the Fells show. And I got Ed McMahon over here. We got Diane Cannon coming out next. This is gonna be a great show tonight. Doc Severinsen playing over there. But we when I was in high school, so my name's Ben. And when I was in high school, I was such a bad hitter. I don't know how anybody didn't come up with the nickname Bendoza, for the Bendoza line, because I always hit under 200. If I had been in their shoes, I would have come up with that nickname to make fun of me. But maybe they were just kind. Maybe there was just too much kindness going on. So I'll take that. That's fine. So when you look at the St. Louis Cardinals and OPS, 800, the number 800 should be the number you remember. Think about 800. If a dude is 800 or higher in OPS, he's having a pretty good year. If he's in the 700s or below, you're like, let's see about this guy. Well, Dylan Carlson in his first year was 780. So that's a little lower, but it was his first year. And I think Dylan Carlson's always going to be over 800 from now on in his career. Real quick, some other OPSs. Tyler O'Neill led the St. Louis Cardinals with a 912 OPS. 912. Paul Goldschmidt, 879. And then Nolan Arenado at 807. And the aforementioned Bader, he was at 785. So that kind of gives you a gauge for what's going on here. So yeah, you got this outfield with O'Neill, the 900s, and then Bader and Carlson flirting with the 800 level, and they all are great defensive players. The St. Louis Cardinals are good to go in the outfield. It's pretty impressive, and you got to give John Mozeliak some credit for that. A lot of people, including myself, were kind of done with Tyler O'Neill. Excuse me, needed a sip of a little water there. And then we jump into this coming season, though. And what's going to happen? Well, first there's going to be a lockout or a strike. There's going to be a work stoppage, unfortunately. We remember those, unfortunately, from 1994 and 1981 and some of the others over the years. It's quite possible baseball will be delayed as they figure it all out, and the millionaires and billionaires figure out how to work the money out. But hopefully we'll be back on the field shortly, in no time at all. And when baseball resumes, I believe that there will be a designated hitter on National League teams from now on. And I guess we'll do a little participation here. Raise your hand if you hate the designated hitter. Yeah, oh my gosh, hands are flying in my face. Yeah, right. So we're from St. Louis. We love the strategy. We love okay, should the pitcher bunt the guy over? It's part of the National League game. But the reality is, look, Rob Manfred, Bill DeWitt Jr., the owners and commissioner, these guys are really just P.T. Barnums. They're just guys putting on a show, and they want to sell tickets. They want people to get in the tent and come to the circus and see the show. And having National League pitchers swing like high school Ben Hockman is not going to sell tickets. But you get a new designated hitter in there. You get a new hitter in each lineup that's going to have an OPS around 800 and not a pitcher's OPS around like 400. And suddenly there's some more offense. And offense sells tickets. Offense gets them in the tent. Offense gets Twitter videos and your grandsons and granddaughters and sons and daughters, and maybe you yourself are flipping through your phone, looking at videos. And how often are the videos of somebody hitting the crap out of the ball more often than they are of videos of a pitcher making a nice pitch or what have you? Offense is baseball. So And there's other reasons for the designated hitter too, but my point is the Cardinals will probably have a designated hitter, which means the Cardinals will need to designate a designated hitter. Who's it going to be? And the question could go, or the answer could be maybe at the shortstop position. We look at the other positions are pretty locked in. First base, Paul Goldschmidt. Second base, Tommy Edman, who came on strong as well, had a bunch of stolen bases and I believe led the National League in doubles. Tommy Edman did. At third base, of course, the great Nolan Arenado. But at shortstop, what are they going to do? At shortstop, what are they going to do? They've got, of course, two guys. There's four, but two guys, Edmundo Sosa and Paul DeYoung. And Paul DeYoung, who I believe is related to the old insurance guy, Rodney DeYoung. Anyway, Paul DeYoung is not doing well. He hits a lot of home runs, but his OPS and his batting average is low. Meanwhile, Edmundo Sosa came on strong. So who should be the shortstop, Sosa or DeYoung? The answer is neither, according to this sports columnist. So the Cardinals have some money to spend. Matt Carpenter's salary is off the books, as are some other high-priced Cardinals players. So because they have this money, this is the time to spend it, right? We're talking about the window. The window is closing. The window is small, whatever, however you want to phrase it. Why not go out and spend the money on a great shortstop who can provide some offensive production and who knows, can maybe get a Gold Glove. Imagine if next year the Cardinals had a Gold Glove caliber shortstop, it would be like the Gold Glove infield they used to have, right? Who was it? I'm going to mess it up, aren't I? Or maybe not. Bill White, Julian Javier. I did that with my face because I'm thinking of Dal Maxwell too. And then Dick Groat at short and Ken Boyer at third. You got a heck of an infield there. Well, imagine if the Cardinals were to get Corey Seager of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who was the reigning, I guess, for at least for the next 24 to 48 hours, he is the reigning World Series MVP. So hold on to it, Corey, because there's going to be a new one of you either tonight or tomorrow. But Corey Seager of the Dodgers is the reigning World Series MVP. His OPS is always in the nines. He's an all-star caliber player, and he's available. He's a free agent. And so some of you might say, oh, why not Carlos Correa? Why not Trevor Story? Or why not some of these other great bats at shortstop that are out there? But for me, the fact that Corey Seager bats left-handed makes him so enticing for the St. Louis Cardinals because Arenado, Goldschmidt, and of course, Tyler O'Neill are all right-handed hitters. So you get that lefty in there in the mix, that shakes things up and should help out the team. Now, you know who else wants Corey Seager? Most teams. And who wouldn't want Corey Seager? He's a star shortstop. So this is one of those situations where I think the Cardinals will need to splurge on a contract because the whole point is you're trying to win the World Series in 2022. You're trying to win the division. You're trying to win the World Series. This wild card stuff, as we learned, just isn't the route to go. Yeah, it's the playoffs. You count it as the playoffs, and the Cardinals made the playoffs last year. But I'll say it one more time, what was the playoffs? It was 3 hours in Los Angeles. The Cardinals had one game, and that was it. That was the whole playoff experience. They lost the wild card game. For you, the fans, you know what the playoffs is. It's a series. It's day after day. It's matchups. It's who's the whole thing. It's a playoff series. And hopefully the St. Louis Cardinals next year will get in the NLDS and then the NLCS. And then, of course, the greatest series of them all, Hill Street Blues. That's the greatest series of them all. I love Hill Street Blues, NBC, one of the best shows I've ever seen. No, the greatest series of them all is the World Series. And hopefully the St. Louis Cardinals will make the World Series. Some of you are probably like Sopranos. Some of you like Mad Men, but I like Hill Street Blues. Anyway, when you look at the Cardinals and their shortstop situation, they're going to have to splurge. And hopefully Mozeliak will. And I would be frustrated if they said Sosa and DeYoung are going to be the shortstop answers next season. Now, maybe one of those guys is the DH. And the great Rick Hummel, who is a mentor of mine, someone I look up to, he's literally in Cooperstown. He's a Hall of Fame sports writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Rick Hummel. He does a weekly chat on our website, and he discussed Kyle Schwarber in his chat yesterday. Kyle Schwarber, the former Cub, that's weird. I guess they got Dexter Fowler, so I guess they can maybe get Kyle Schwarber too. But Kyle Schwarber, known as a Cub, has moved on to some other teams, is going to be a free agent, and he would be a great designated hitter, and he's bats lefty. So the only problem is he's not a Gold Glove. What would be the opposite? A Copper Glove? I don't know. No glove. He's a terrible defensive player. And you know, these days with platooning and putting players in different spots and matchups and strategy, manager Ali Marmol is going to want to use every one of his players and put them in different spots. And that would mean Schwarber too. And you don't want Schwarber out there with the glove on it. The only glove you want on Schwarber's hand is a batting glove with the bat in it. So we'll see if they go down that route with Kyle Schwarber. I mentioned Albert Pujols earlier, and it's just mind-boggling that he is, I mean, he's still in baseball. He turns 42 on January 16th. And this is kind of fun. I love birthdays, by the way, as we heard, because it's Nelly and Willie McGee's birthday, shared birthday. We'll talk about a great shared birthday. Two men, two heroes of my generation, were born literally the same day, January 16th, 1980. Albert Pujols and Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of Hamilton. I saw, this is it from the Richard Rogers. I saw the original cast of Hamilton in 2016. How cool. I'm just showing off at this point. What else can I show off about? But this was a really neat experience in my life. I saw Lin-Manuel Miranda as Alexander Hamilton. Lin-Manuel Miranda did In the Heights. He's in the new Mary Poppins. He's in everything. He's spectacular. And the fact that one of the greatest entertainers and one of the greatest baseball players were born on the exact same day is pretty cool. And in their teen years, Albert moved to New York for a brief period of time. So they're both teenagers kind of learning the landscape in New York City at the same time. I kind of like that idea of a young Lin-Manuel and a young Albert kind of roaming the streets of New York, learning life and picking up things and becoming this before the stars were born, if you will. Well, Albert Pujols is now, like I said, 41 on January 16th, 2022. He will turn 42 years old, and he's still going. He was rejuvenated with the Los Angeles Dodgers last year. Now, his OPS overall was in the 700s. As we talked about earlier on this, that's good, not great. But when Albert Pujols faces left-handed pitchers, Albert Pujols' OPS was 939. That's better than Tyler O'Neill's OPS was overall last year. 939, as they say, that'll play. So Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, Los Angeles Dodgers, figured out a great way to maximize Pujols, maximize age 41 Pujols. And the Dodgers made the playoffs. Albert had a great year. He faced a lot of left-handed pitchers, and he was a part of that playoff team that, of course, defeated the Cardinals, ended the Cardinals season. And the Dodgers went on to the next round of the playoffs. So the question is, should free agent Albert Pujols sign with the St. Louis Cardinals and maybe be the DH for them? There's a lot to like there. There's other options, of course. Excuse me for a little more water. Cheers to Harpo's. This Benjamin Hockman sip is brought to you by Harpo's of Columbia, Missouri. There's also one in Chesterfield, I believe. Anyway, Albert Pujols, so should we get him? Should the Cardinals get him? I think if they can get him for the right price, and surely he's not going to demand 2011 Albert Pujols money, which led to his departure in the first place. I think it could be a pretty neat get for the St. Louis Cardinals to have Pujols come off the bench, to have Pujols DH, to have Pujols pinch hit against left-handed hitters, and have Pujols mentor the players. we talk a lot about, or I talk a lot about wins above replacement, WAR. And that's kind of a catch-all stat in baseball that similar to OPS, where it's like modern baseball thinkers use this stat to describe a player's overall worth, his overall value. And that's called WAR. But one thing that a statistic cannot calculate is a player's influence as a leader, as a mentor, as a teammate. And someone like Yadier Molina or someone like Adam Wainwright, his WAR, his worth, his value should be higher than the statistic says, because we know, and the Cardinals share, how important those guys are to the rest of the team. How many pitchers have improved because of Yadier Molina's existence, right? How many pitchers have improved because of Adam Wainwright's existence? Waino talking to them and mentoring them and teaching them tricks with their pitches. Well, Albert Pujols would provide that for the 2022 St. Louis Cardinals. It would be pretty cool. I like this quote. I mentioned Dave Roberts earlier, the Dodgers manager, the Los Angeles Dodgers manager. He said that Pujols mentored everybody with the Dodgers. He even mentored me. I think that's cool. Even the manager was like, I even learned from Albert Pujols. So to think of the value of Albert in that clubhouse, in that dugout in 2022 is something that I'm sure John Mozeliak and his staff are also thinking about. They're probably on a Zoom just like us right now, discussing the value of Albert Pujols. And we should combine the Zooms. Let's see if we can combine the Zooms and we can all talk to them and tell them what we really think. I haven't gotten into pitching yet, but there's a lot of both optimism and optimism and skepticism. I could say with the pitching, there's both exclamation points and question marks regarding the rotation, because Wainwright's back. Wainwright, who you ever see that movie Benjamin Button, where the character gets younger each year? I feel like that's what's going on with Adam Wainwright. Something happened 3 years ago at age 38, and he just stopped growing, but he's now 35. He's going back a year each year. So that means he's going to be around for about 15 more years as a Cardinals pitcher, but then things will get weird when he's like 60 something and a toddler. Anyway, that was dumb. Don't laugh. So Wainwright's back. And then who else do we have? Jack Flaherty, the Cardinals ace. He should be healthy. Dakota Hudson, who's got some great stats, and he's a protege of Adam Wainwright. He should be back as well too. So there's three guys, and then the fourth guy, Miles Michaelis, the great mustached pitcher. He should be back as well, and they're very high on him. Who else you got? Alex Reyes, the aforementioned Alex Reyes, who drives everybody insane as a relief pitcher. Benjamin, why are you going to then make him a starting pitcher? Oh my God. Well, I will say that if you look at Alex Reyes's repertoire, if you look at his arsenal, that might be the same thing. If you look at his different pitches and how many he has, and if you were just to give him a longer runway, if you will, let's say 5 innings to pitch a game, not just one key inning late in the game, I feel like Reyes would kind of get more comfortable out there. He would be able to use all of his pitches, get into a groove, take away that pressure that was on his head, hanging over his head of pitching the 9th or pitching the 8th. And he used to be a top pitching prospect. So there's a lot to like about giving Alex Reyes a shot as a starting pitcher. And it's quite possible that they'll do that this year. Another name, Matthew Liberatore. A lot of people, a lot of Cardinals fans, and we get angry when we see how good Randy Arozarena is. Randy Arozarena was on the Cardinals. He was on the team. He had a jersey and everything. And then they got rid of him. And now he's a stud standout for the Tampa Bay Rays. And everyone's like, how could you had him? He was in your own uniform. And then you made him take it off. And now he's wearing another uniform. You had him. And it's true. They had him. They lost him. They made a bad decision on Arozarena. But we can't just say it was a terrible trade until we see what happens with Matthew Liberatore, the tall lefty who pitched in AAA last year and was one of the youngest pitchers in AAA. So he's kind of advanced already. I don't know if Liberatore is going to crack the Cardinals rotation, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, during the course of the season, they don't just have 5 starting pitchers. Guys get hurt, guys get bad, guys get called up, what have you. I think Matthew Liberatore will make his major league debut in 2022. And I'm really excited to see that. And he was, of course, I didn't say it was in the trade for Rosa Reyes. So maybe the trade will end up being a fair one because Liberatore becomes a star pitcher. But the question is, how soon can that happen? He's very young. I believe he's 22, 23, something like that. So I don't know if he's ready to pitch all those innings. Some people say the Cardinals should just forget Reyes, forget Liberatore, and keep Reyes in the pen and just go purchase a pitcher. And they might do that too. There's a guy, Marcus Strowman, out there who's a very enticing pitcher. He was on the Mets, previously pitched for the Blue Jays. I really like Marcus Strowman. He's got some good numbers, some good stuff. He could be a guy that the Cardinals would consider. But again, anytime you purchase a player, that means you're invested in him, and that means somebody that you're trying to groom and grow could, of course, not get the opportunity. A wild card, and Myron Holtzman brings it up in the chat, a great idea or a great point here by Myron, is Jordan Hicks. He'll be available next year. Now, I think Jordan wouldn't mind starting, but I think he's proven that he can be a pretty good relief pitcher if he can get the walks down. Jordan Hicks, if you recall, was the guy who was throwing over 100 miles per hour for the St. Louis Cardinals, an electric pitcher, a former third-round draft pick out of Houston, out of high school, who came to the Cardinals fast. He's also a diabetic. He's battled through some stuff. He's kind of an inspiration to a lot of people in that regard. And he had pitching surgery, arm surgery, but he should be healthy and ready to go. In fact, he pitched a little bit late in the year in the minor leagues, not because he's a minor league level talent or anything now, but just to get some innings in that didn't, so he could, get his arm back. And so he'll be another X factor for the St. Louis Cardinals heading into next year. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the Cardinals. I'm also putting the pressure on the Cardinals. I won't be excited if they get the wild card. I think if they get the wild card next year, that's a failure. They need to win the division. And we know that the Cubs are rebuilding. Or I say they need to win the division, regardless of who the other teams are in the division, right? They need to win the division. But the fact that, the Cubs are rebuilding, the Reds are always just in the middle there, the Pirates are always the Pirates. There's a lot of wins to get. Now, the Brewers are a very talented team. They won the division. They have some great pitching. We talk about how excited we are about the Cardinals outfield. Well, the Brewers are excited about its top three pitchers, the top three starting pitchers. Now, that's a trio. Those guys are really good. And I think they're going to battle for the division title again. But the Cardinals have to do everything they can to win the division, because you don't want to be in that wild card game again. It's too risky to put the whole season on 3 hours, if you will. We saw it last year. So we talked a lot about the moves the Cardinals need to make, the Cardinals could make. Here's hoping they make some moves. They can't just sit on their hands, because I don't think the roster as is ready to win the division and win the World Series. But an addition like Corey Seager, an addition like maybe Strowman, who knows, could put the Cardinals in contention for their 12th World Series title. It's crazy to think they haven't won since 2011. It's been a decade. It'll be 11 years next year. 11 years since 11-11, the last time the St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series. So hopefully for them, they'll do it. I've been rambling for 40 minutes here. I'd love to, Lynn, interact with you all if you have any questions. Judith, you want to have
there's a couple of comments in the chat so far. Albert would also put fans in the seats, says Bill Livingston.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bill. And again, we talked about getting him in the tent, right? The old P.T. Barnum thing. I mean, people will come. Or now I'm mixing all these metaphors. People will come, like at Field of Dreams. People will come to see Albert Poulos, and he's approaching 700 home runs for his career. How special would it be for Albert Pujols to do that with the birds on the bat across his chest? Now, I will say this, and last year, a lot of people were clamoring for the Cardinals to get Pujols when the when the Los Angeles Angels released him. But I said, look, and this was before his rejuvenation with the Dodgers. I said, look, think about Matt Carpenter. Matt Carpenter was a celebrity in St. Louis just a couple years ago. Everyone loved him. Everyone was talking about salsa, buying his salsa at Schnucks because he made special salsa that, of course, had hitting powers in it. Just dip one chip in it and you'll be an MVP candidate. And we loved Matt Carpenter. And then what happened? The same people that loved him were booing him at Busch. He was striking out a bunch. And I bring that up, of course, because look, Albert Poulos is going to strike out a bunch at age 42. He's not going to be Albert Poulos of 2005. He can still contribute, but not as much as you remember. And the fans would have to kind of come to grips with that and acknowledge that there's going to be times that they're going to be mad at Albert. And I know you said like, well, I know you could say like, well, some of the fans were mad at Albert when he left the Cardinals in 2011, but I think and hope most people have gotten over that. So it'll be interesting to see how people react if the Cardinals get Poulos and he starts getting out late in games and blowing games. We'll see what happens there.
Sheldon, we have a couple of hands up here. Sheldon Enger, you want to unmute yourself? Not yet.
I've got faith in
There we go.
Sheldon.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Appreciate your insight. And where do we go with Martinez?
I think it's over with Carlos Martinez, unfortunately. And it frustrates me as both a Cardinals spectator and a journalist because few things anger me more than wasted talent. And maybe it comes back to the guy that hit under the Mendoza line in high school that would have given a pinky finger for the chance to just, hit well. And here's Carlos Martinez, who had the talent to pitch well, better than most guys in baseball. He was a multi-time All-Star. But as the Cardinals have detailed over the years, his lack of work ethic off the field, his lack of intensity in returning from injury, prevented him from being an all-star again. And now he got injured again, and he had the walks and the losses, and he's off the. I think they're just going to have to cut ties with Carlos Martinez to answer your question, Sheldon. And again, it's they got some value out of him over the years. He was an important guy on those teams in 2013, 14, and 15 that made the playoffs. But you want to wonder what if. And he's a guy you would have thought could have maybe competed for Cy Young awards and now is essentially an afterthought with the St. Louis Cardinals. And real quick, I will get to the question, but I see Robert Braun, and I love the way he said this in here. He goes, explain again slowly why they changed managers. And to the question, Robert, we don't know literally the thing that triggered it. We don't know if it was about pitching or hitting, which philosophy that John Mozeliak and Mike Shildt butted heads about. But we know that after the season, at a managers and coaches and executives meeting, they were talking about the Cardinals' philosophies going forward. And Mike Shildt got a little too big for his britches and was demanding this and that. And John Mozeliak was saying, no, I don't want to go that direction. And you know what? I don't like your tone. I don't know if he literally said that, but he's thinking it. And finally, Mozeliak was like, look, I'm the boss here. We're trying to win the World Series. I don't want to move forward with this guy as my manager. We've got a great manager in waiting in Oliver Marmol, who's within the organization right now and is going to be a manager someday. Well, you know what? Why don't I make him the manager of the 2022 Cardinals? So for better or worse, that's what happened. Judith, you want to go to some more?
Bill, Bill Livingston, want to unmute yourself, and then Marilyn after that.
Two questions. One, do you think that Albert would come back as a playing assistant hitting coach? And second, any chance of doing away with the extra inning man on second base rule?
Great questions, Bill. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you all for joining us today.
Oh, you write that. Better find it.
So when you look at Albert, I don't think he would literally they would literally give him the job title, if you will, of assistant hitting coach. That really involves a lot of time. Being a coach is being a coach like takes a lot of time. Like I said, a lot of film study. And I can combine this here. John Reichman asks about what makes Jeff Albert so desirable. You know, they love his film study. They love his philosophy about hitting to all fields, about working to get barrels on the bat or barrels on the ball with the bat. For some reason, they love this philosophy. And I don't know if if Albert Pujols would work as an assistant for Jeff Albert. However, like I mentioned earlier, and kind of to your point, Bill, they're getting a free coach. They're getting a free coach out of the deal by getting Albert Pujols if he returns to the team as a player, because he's going to provide so much of his institutional knowledge, 20 plus years in the big leagues. He'll share it with the players, and players look up to him. At the end of the day, a lot of baseball, I've learned over the years, is just like, who can you trust and who can you respect? And a guy that's played in the majors at the highest of levels just automatically gets respect from the current players. And this isn't to say someone like Mike Schultz had success. He went to the playoffs all 3 years. He never had a professional at bat, never played in the minors or anything, but he had success as a coach. That being said, when Albert Pujols walks in with 690 home runs or whatever, you don't need to ask for a resume. You're going to listen to what he says about hitting. And yeah, I wouldn't mind getting rid of the extra inning rule. It's interesting though. Like we hate 14 inning games, right? We hate, especially if it's a West Coast game. Like I find myself dozing off late in games, and if the Cardinals at Padres is suddenly in the 12th inning and it's 12:30 in the morning and I'm not that happy. I kind of wish the game had ended. And how would the game end sooner? Well, with this runner on second stuff that they've been doing. I don't know if they'll keep it. I think it's going to be part of the collective bargaining that they discuss, and we'll see what happens there. But as a columnist, I'm normally like, you got to get Poulos, you got to get rid of O'Neill. I've got these opinions and I just make them and say them, and that's kind of my job. But with this, I can kind of see it both ways.
And Thursday.
Do the players
Maryland,
like it?
I think Maryland. I was just gonna say Maryland. I think.
Maryland.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you wish to talk about it. Your great article on the cover of the Sports in the Post this morning, and how you can't root for the Astros. You seem to really like Dusty Baker. I mean, everybody seems to like him. But I was just wondering if you cared to comment on that.
Yeah, definitely. And real quick, Bill, I don't think the players like it, especially the pitchers don't like it, because they don't like being in that situation. I want to run around base to start the inning and the pressure is on. So I think they might get back to the way it was. Now, Marilyn, I appreciate your question about Dusty Baker. I wrote about him in the paper. For those that didn't see it, we've got a situation where the former Cardinal rival, the guy who feuded with Tony La Russa year after year, first as the Cubs manager and then as the Reds manager, is now, of course, the manager of the Houston Astros. And over the years, I've learned more about Dusty Baker, the man, Dusty Baker, the baseball thinker, Dusty Baker, the perseverer, if that's a word. He's been through a lot in his life, and he's touched so many people in baseball, and he really is a good dude, a good guy, a good human, a good father, and a good baseball thinker. And he's done everything in the game except win a World Series as a manager. He's won it as a player with the Dodgers in '81, but he's never won a World Series. And I mentioned this in the column. How crazy of an accomplishment is this? He's managed 5 different teams over the years. All 5 have made the playoffs. That's pretty spectacular. La Russa, for all of his things and all of his teams, he hasn't managed 5 teams. So yeah, I love Dusty Baker as a guy, as a manager. I would really like him to be a World Series champion, yet I cannot find myself, find it in myself to root for his team this year. He's helped the Astros in so many ways. He took over when the Astros were at a low point. Of course, if you don't know, the Houston Astros did the unthinkable. They cheated the game of baseball in a brazen way. They had a almost like a system set up in their home games where they would watch the signs. They'd steal the signs. They'd watch the signs of the other team, and then right before the pitch came, they would literally bang a trash can from the dugout or from behind the dugout, and it was as simple as, I believe, 1 strike of the thing means fastball, 2 strikes means breaking ball. And baseball, one of the hardest things to do in the world is hit a baseball. One of the easiest things to do in the world, if you're a player, is hit a baseball if you know what pitch is coming. And the Astros knew what pitch is coming. It was just so ridiculous. I mean, to me, it's like, that the advantage they had would be similar as if they had like a metal bat in their hands, or if they had this sounds dumb, but like a 10-foot bat, the big bat that just anytime it hit the ball would go far. I mean, it was just so dumb how they tilted the game, unleveled the playing field, cheated the game. And it ticked me off. It ticked a lot of fans off. They won the 2017 World Series in part because they cheated. So look, they still got those guys: Altuve, Bregman, Marwin Gonzalez, Carlos Correa, who interestingly is a free agent. He could end up with the St. Louis Cardinals maybe as a shortstop. And that would be a whole nother scenario, how the Cardinals fans take to him. But yeah, I don't want to see those guys honored with the World Series championship. I don't want to see them seen as heroes again. I'd rather see them lose. And that means I guess I'd rather see their manager lose. And even though I really like their manager, Dusty Baker. So that was kind of the theme of my column in today's St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Were they fined, one last question, or punished in any way for cheating?
The players were not. The way it was set up. Yeah, I know, right? The players were not.
Terrible.
Yeah, their bosses were, the manager gone, executives gone, coaches gone. Now the players, and this doesn't make up for it, but I will say the fans of the other teams have done a very good job of booing and coming up with clever insults and holding up trash cans and things like that to constantly remind the Astros of what the rest of baseball thinks of the Astros, or the trash tros, if you will. But no, they were not punished. They didn't lose money or game or playing time or anything like that.
Thank you.
Steve Loeb has a question, and then John Reichman.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you did a good job in talking about the shortstop situation for the Cardinals.
Thanks.
And there's 3 really outstanding free agents we know, and it's going to be very competitive to get them. And the Cardinals have one of my favorite, most unappreciated player on the team in Tommy Edmonds, who came up as a shortstop. And they've got Nolan Gorman, who's their superstar in the minors, being groomed at second base.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a possibility, if he shows up well in spring training, that Edmonds will be your shortstop and Gorman at least your second baseman? And Sosa has been backing them both up.
Sure. I was gonna say, a great insight, great thinking there. And yeah, I have not mentioned Nolan Gorman yet. He is a minor league stud. He's kind of famous for this. He's the first ever major league player to be born in the 2000s to be drafted. We're getting old, folks. He's a guy born in the 2000s. That was a few years ago too. Drafted into the Cardinals organization, and yeah, he hits the heck out of the baseball. To answer your question, unfortunately, the timeline is hurting the Cardinals. Free agency comes before spring training. So they could, what was the phrase, hedge their bets and say, ooh, maybe Gorman is ready. Let's just not sign a shortstop, put Tommy Edman at shortstop, and assume Gorman is the second baseman. And if they go to spring training and for 2 months he can't hit big league pitching consistently, then you're stuck and you're saying, why didn't we go for Corey Seager? All we had to do was give money and buy Corey Seager, and we could have gotten him on our team. We wouldn't have even had to trade any players or anything like that. So that leads to the quandary. I mean, everything in baseball is about maximizing value and maximizing situations. And that's the situation the Cardinals are currently in. I don't think they think that Gorman's ready to take 500 at-bats in the major league lineup next season. So because of that, I think they'll try to develop him more AAA and sign one of the aforementioned shortstops. But okay, so let's fast forward this Zoom to 300. Next year's not a leap year, right? Let's fast forward this 365 days. I guess even if it was a leap year, we could fast forward at 366 days. We'd still be right in the middle of early November. But the reality is next year at this time, okay, what are we doing? Let's say they signed Corey Seager and they've got Edman at second base, and now they've got Nolan Gorman, who hit great in AAA and is ready to play in the majors. Where do you put him? Do you start him at DH? A lot of questions to be answered. And I hate to kick the can down the road, but I think that's what they'll do as they try to go all in to win in 22.
John, I think John, did
Yeah,
you get
well, maybe I want to defer to Myron. He seems like
Oh.
he's anxious to
Oh,
ask a
Myron.
question. Then come back to me.
John, you're so kind to me. Hey, Ben, the dynamic of the shortstop has changed in the last 20 years or so, where the shortstop used to be a defensive whiz, and not so much for his offensive bat. And that's quite a bit. And that's what the Cardinals, if it was back then, I think Edman would be a great shortstop. But
No
now
question,
he's the power hitter.
Yeah, and I liked your play on words there with the defensive whiz, of course. Where is it? Greatest defensive whiz, the wizard, Ozzie Smith, played shortstop in the era you're referring to of the 1980s. And yeah, for generations, the shortstop was a thin player who could field well and hit kind of well. And a guy like Cal Ripken, who could smash the ball and play shortstop, was kind of the outlier. And now a talent like Cal Ripken, a bigger guy, stronger guy who hits for power and also plays shortstop nimbly, is the modern shortstop. And that's what we're dealing with. And there was kind of a transition, kind of in the 1990s. We saw that with guys like Garcia Parra. Jeter wasn't necessarily a slugger, but that generation of shortstops, it's kind of funny, when you're growing up, everyone's got like a few favorite players that you say, oh yeah, like a lot of people, maybe when you're growing up, like Stan the Man was the guy you wanted to be like. Well, if you ask most players now in the major leagues who they wanted to be like, it was Derek Jeter. And Derek Jeter kind of inspired people to play shortstop, and not just because of the glove, because of the bat too. Jeter was a pretty good hitter. And so that's part of the reason why, I mean, it's more of anecdotal, but it's another one of the reasons why shortstop became such an offensive position for the next generations. And now you're seeing it all the time. You look at many good teams, their shortstop is a vital bat in that batting order. John?
Yes, and now before I go to the question, I just wanted to say, Ben, how much I appreciate your wordsmithing. Yesterday's simile, famous bar as opposed to venture. I don't even remember what we were comparing it with, but and this morning reading about Dusty Baker, he inherited inherent stars. And I think it makes a pleasure opening up the paper every morning and reading your column. And
you're very kind.
With that, I want to ask a question about the upcoming negotiations contract. You kind of mentioned it. Maybe there'll be a work stoppage with the event inevitable, to my unhappiness of the designated hitter, would there also possibly be an increase in the roster?
That's a great question. Yeah, that having an additional player on the roster helps the players out because it literally creates 30 jobs that didn't
That's
exist.
exactly right. Yeah.
And 30 men will get major league salaries compared to minor league salaries. It could extend some careers. It could give some new opportunities. So yeah, I think that'll definitely be an argued and maybe a bargaining chip and an argued topic as they go into this. And it could also change the complexity and the strategy of games just in general. I mean, how often do you see a guy like Andrew Kisner, the Cardinals backup catcher, not being used as a pinch hitter because they want to preserve him for later in the game, just in case Molina gets hurt? A God forbid situation. Well, now with an extra spot on the roster, maybe you can carry 3 catchers. And by doing that, by having 3 catchers, you could use Kisner, use his bat as a pinch hitter earlier in the game. So that leads to the strategy as well. And just briefly, you mentioned the famous bar venture thing. The famous bar venture. I said what did I say? There's I don't remember what I was writing about, but the Blues, they have like a famous bar defense for venture prices because the guys don't make that much money, but they play at a high level. And that for me, that's one of the reasons I wanted to take this job. I was pretty fortunate to be a sports columnist in Denver. One of the 3 sports columnists there with Woody Page and Mark Kisla at the Denver Post. And they've got all 4 sports, basketball, baseball, football, basketball, hockey. They got a big college team there in Colorado. I was really pleased and privileged to be a columnist there, but that wasn't my town, if you will. I didn't really have a connection to Colorado, and getting to even just throwing a little reference to famous bar in a column kind of just makes me feel more like I'm in the right place. And the fact that you noticed that means that maybe some other people did too. And that makes it fun. That makes it fun. So thank you for that.
Denver also has Stan Kroenke.
Yes. Who I got to know briefly when I was covering the Denver Nuggets. And he was always nice to me. I didn't realize that he would someday kick all of my friends right in the stomach. But
our lower.
Yeah, right. Touche. Yeah. Touche.
So Ken, we have time for one more question, and I think Ken, actually 2. Ken had his hand up, and then Earl.
Yeah, I have a question, but it's not really on baseball. What's your opinion of Jason Gates in Wall Street Journal? I mean, I think he's like a Mark Twain. So I just wanted your opinion of it.
Yeah. I'm glad your question didn't involve math and all those numbers in your name thing there. I was like, oh my God, is he going to have me multiply those numbers or something? I'm glad your question was simply about sports and sports writing. And Jason Gay of the Wall Street Journal, I love that. Mark Twain, my gosh, he is a wordsmith, to use that word from earlier. Again, I mean, with this job, we're not curing cancer. We're not fighting wars. We're just trying to entertain and make sports fans think about sports things. And you might as well have fun doing it. And you might as well work hard on entertaining people with your words. And few people do it better than the sports writer you mentioned from the Wall Street Journal. So thanks for your question.
Earl, did you have something you need to unmute? Earl, you need to unmute your.
Better? Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, Ben, I always enjoy your articles. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the 18th at the Jewish Book Festival.
Yeah.
And the question was actually touched upon with Molina getting older and getting hurt more frequently. And you mentioned the Mendoza line. Kinsner hit below the Mendoza line.
Right.
I think they need a backup catcher, a veteran who's willing to be a backup, who can hit somewhat better. And Kinsner's getting a little older. He may want to be traded, if anything, because he's approaching 28, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And even though his defense has improved greatly, I think that they need someone behind Molina who can be more of an offensive threat. And I just wanted your opinion on that, or who may be available.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, you might be on to something, Earl, because similar to Carson Kelly, we have a situation where a guy, and I know you mentioned Kisner hit 182 last year, so he wasn't that great of a hitter, but he's got the prowess to be a better hitter, they think. He might want to be a starting catcher somewhere, or at least play half the games or something like that. And the Cardinals have two things going for them here. They got the window of trying to win in 22, and they've got a young man named Ivan Herrera, who is a minor league catcher, who's similar to Nolan Gorman. He's not as good as Nolan Gorman, but they think he definitely has big league talent and could be Yadier's heir, if you will. So I don't think Herrera's ready for the big leagues this year. So maybe, just maybe, they pull off your deal here and they trade Kisner and then use that roster spot to get a more experienced backup catcher. They not literally Matt Wieters, but they had Matt Wieters a couple years ago, who was an experienced catcher who the players seemed to gravitate to in the clubhouse and like talking to him. And he hit a few homers and such too. So maybe they fill that gap with a veteran backup catcher, and then Yadier retires, and then Ivan Herrera comes up and in 23, 24, and he'll be age 23, 24, and he's the new catcher. So we'll see what happens there, but great points there, Earl. And I guess this is it for today's show, today's Zoom. So I want to thank you all for participating and laughing at my dumb jokes and listening to my Cardinals thoughts.
Oh, thank you so much, Ben. As always, you have like a ton of information and encouragement, and just your enthusiasm for the sport is just fantastic, and we really appreciate it. Thank you,
Judy, if I can-
everyone.
if I
Yes,
can interject
please.
One last thing.
Oh,
And
please.
I think you and I have been very lucky to do something for our careers that we enjoyed so much.
Right. Yeah. You were an acclaimed sports editor. I'm a average sports writer. We're both sports journalists, and we got to do what we love. We're lucky fellows, aren't we? We're lucky fells. FELS.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ben, and we'll see you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great program.
Always fun. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Ben.
Later.